So we have this wonderful heading for the day of leading through change, practical tools for the public sector. And we're going to do all of that very quickly. In just about half an hour, we're going to do strengthening leadership, your change management skills. My change management skills were mostly in mergers and acquisitions. I was part of a company that was bought by a global organization, and we all felt like helpless victims. And then I was part of a large global organization that bought a small privately owned company, and they felt like victims, but I knew how they felt. So we managed that quite well. So we're going to do that. We're going to boost team resilience and adaptability. We're going to navigate changes with greater confidence. Confidence is a wonderful thing. There are going to be barriers to change. You may have come across those already, but we're going to touch on some of them. And change makers. There'll be people in your world who are capable of creating change, making change, and delivering change. And we'll talk about what that looks like. And the reason this matters is you now depend on other people for your success. There was a day when your success was determined entirely on what you personally did, what you personally delivered, your personal successes, your personal skills. But now you depend on other people for your success, and getting them on board and engaged is a part of what we're going to touch on today. So universal leadership skills. We've talked about leadership skills for the public sector. There are private sector leaders and there are public sector leaders. And some of those skills are very similar, okay? There are going to be some unique challenges for the private sector, as indeed there are for the public sector. And we'll touch on those and look at those later. But the challenges that come your way, the major differences are navigating political dynamics, both in local authorities and in central government, and the complexity of cabinet government, and its temptation and its preference for changing its mind halfway through programs. And we'll touch on that again. So in the public sector, the reason this matters is, and I was surprised by these numbers, globally, the public sector employs 1/3 of the global workforce, not necessarily just the UK, but certainly in third world countries. And the public sector spends 25% of the global GDP. So a major, major player. And in the change programs, these are going to be your pressure points. You're going to be subject to external scrutiny, especially if you're in government. You're going to enjoy having your failures blasted abroad. Failure in the public sector is highly visible, and it's reported by a highly critical media. And the other challenge is in public service, everybody feels like they own you. It's kind of, I pay my taxes, you work for me. I've had to deal with that one before now. So everyone feels like they own you. They all think they could do a better job. Yeah, how difficult can it be? They have no idea, do they? And they all understand how government works. Not. They get all of their understanding from government from Sir Humphrey in the Prime Minister series that the name escapes me now. So how do you navigate government? Well, your challenges are going to be lessened by adopting these strategies. So build alliances. Build alliances with people before you need them. Yeah, there's nothing worse than you need somebody's input, support, you need their voice, and you first time you touch base with them is you're after something. I recommend that you build alliances with key people, and you know who they are. Build those alliances before you need them, so that when you have to call on people, you have some history and you have some connection. You will need to enable the ministerial agenda, and as we hinted, that agenda will change. Please nurture cross-departmental coordination and cooperation. This sits well with the build alliances piece, okay? During COVID, 80% of OECD countries reported increased ministerial cooperation and coordination. In a crisis, people do tend to work better together. Yeah, they'll pull on other people. So again, you build those alliances before you need them, guys. Not everybody likes change. You'll have noticed this. If you live with a partner and you share a bedroom, when you go home tonight, get in the wrong side of the bed, yeah, and see how that goes. Yeah, even change domestically comes with its challenges. Yeah, so when you go home this evening, give it a try. Uncertainty in change programs is like poison. It seeps around, it seeps just below the surface. It's not always immediately visible, but it's there and it's toxic, and it's going to suck the life, the energy, and the motivation out of people unless you get them free of this toxic environment and attitude. Key part of that is keep to the plan. Yeah, that will be a measure of your integrity. Now, plans change, and those changes do need to be communicated, and we'll talk about how you do that and who you do that with in a few minutes. But keep to the plan and plan for the unexpected. Yeah, such as Brexit, such as COVID, and there are global conflicts going on right now that we couldn't have anticipated, we didn't foresee coming. But there are government departments who have scenario planning teams who put together what will we do if, what will we do if, and you can't get it all, but you've thought about change. And the bottom line for most individuals, yeah, is, and I don't mean to paint them as selfish, but how will it affect me? Kind of, and it's the bottom line. Yeah, and people will ask about their colleagues, they'll ask about the principles, the values, the implementation, but most people will want to know how's it going to affect me, and at some point you'll need to address that. So why do we get negative responses to change? There are some people on this call who love change. I'm one of those people. You know, even at home, it gets me into trouble with my beloved wife. I'll change things just because I'm bored with how they are. But not everybody likes change. Okay. For various reasons, I can't see the point of the change. Sense of personal loss. People dread losing control over their job. They dread losing power and authority they have in their position. Is all tied in together. Yeah. So in your comms, you're going to need to address control, power, and position. They may not put that on the table, but you know it's there. And we've all got, none of us have enough work, do we? As if, okay. Some people are just concerned that this means increased workload. I can't keep up with what I've got at the moment. Yeah. And so when you're setting targets with people, the phrase you're never going to accept is "I'll try." Yeah. Because the person who says "I'll try" is setting you up for disappointment and failure. If in briefing people you get an "I'll try," your response as a leader is, what do you need from me to make you successful, and turn that "I'll try" into a yes. Yeah. Don't accept being fobbed off. And directly or indirectly, people feel threatened, and those threats can be real or imagined. And the way you deal with that is you spell out honestly the truth, you spell out honestly the scenario, and it deprives the misery gossipers the opportunity to trash your project. There are people who have personal values or beliefs, highly held, appropriately so, that make them natural enemies of change. And we won't mention any projects by name, but it's entirely, you're going to come across this, people who are in a department where government philosophy requires this approach and this strategy, and they have a set of personal values that cut across that. Classically, change initiatives fail for these reasons. Confusion about what's expected. And it's your job to deal with confusion by applying and explaining and communicating the truth. Unclear roles, who's doing what, who's responsible, and accountability matters enormously. Okay, people given a task are accountable for delivering it, and you need to hold them accountable for delivering it. And that's not an aggressive alpha male or alpha female role. A good accountability is, this is what we've agreed, and remember, your role as a leader is to help them be successful. This is what we've agreed. How's it going? Yeah. Sometimes adequate resources are a challenge. Lack of corrective action. When I'll be thrilled for you if your change program goes exactly as you expected. But almost certainly there are change programs out there that are going to need correction and adjustment. And that ties in quite neatly with progress and quality not being managed or measured. Yeah. What gets measured gets done. Yeah. And your program will have a timetable, and you will hold regular meetings with people to see how is it being managed and how is progress and quality progressing. Poor comms, vertically and horizontally. Yeah. vertically from your boss, and in some scenarios you're going to be the boss, and horizontally. Okay. And the politics. Yeah, the office politics, we all suffer from those, don't we? And governmental politics. You're going to have to deal with those. And occasionally they'll change senior management. They may change a minister. There may be a cabinet minister who changes, who's got different agendas, and those things can be a fly in the ointment. And the wider environment for the project changes. And I touched on global impacts that all sorts of parts of our world are having to deal with, but also things that we didn't anticipate. And I've already mentioned Brexit, and I've already mentioned COVID. Okay. So how do you deal with resistance? There are going to be people who aren't thrilled that you're leading this project. Okay. So when you have to make change, there's a reason for it. And please explain the reasons. That's much more than giving people a task. That's about reasons for change are about painting a picture of the future, what the benefits are and what the advantages are. But please do so in their language. There'll be people in your world who are numbers people. They're stats people. They want to know how much, they want to know when, they have their timetable. If you put out a budget and if you put out a program and a timetable, they will read it. There'll be other people who are genuinely concerned about their colleagues and the effect it will have on their colleagues. So you need to understand your audience and communicate appropriately. Don't spend ages explaining numbers and stats to someone who doesn't have a grid for that. Give them what they need, yeah, but find out what's their language, and then involve them in the process so that they feel less like victims and more like people shaping it and delivering it. And we touched on this. You can't get away from this. The comms piece needs to be regular and it needs to be honest. Please avoid spin. Yeah, I shock was to hear a newscaster recently criticizing the politician they were interviewing with the phrase, "You politicians never answer a question." Now, that's not been my personal experience, certainly at a local level, but your role is to communicate regularly and honestly. And stakeholders, you have those, and they will have an interest or an influence on your change project. Remember I said earlier, create alliances before you need them, especially true of stakeholders. So here's a quick, simple, easy to use tool that will serve you well. Okay. Stakeholders, those not directly involved need to know. They need to know about the strategy, why it's necessary, the objectives, and when will it impact. And again, we're back to the bottom line. So here's how you can assess your stakeholders. Classically, stakeholders arrive, some have power, some don't. Some are very interested, and others are kind of, call me if it's a problem. Okay. And so they fall into these categories, and I'll give this a bit of time. There's those with high interest and low power. Okay. These are the people in your world who don't have the ability to shape or influence the budget or affect the resources, the finances available, the people available. They don't have a lot of power, but boy, are they interested in your project. Yeah. And you're going to need to deal with them. And the best way to do that is to keep them informed. Yeah. As things develop, keep them informed. So executive summaries exist for a reason. Yeah. There are executive summary people and there are detail people. High interest people tend to be detail people. High interest and high power. These really are the major players that you want to build an alliance and a connection with before you need it. Yeah, they are very interested in what you're doing, but they also have the ability to slow it down, speed it up, increase resources, flex the budget, provide additional people, human resources. These people need to be engaged. Okay. If you don't engage these people in shaping your policy and your project plan, they will themselves put themselves involved. So these people get to shape it. The low power people, yeah, they want to know, give them information. Okay. But these people need to be engaged with. Low interest, high power. These are the people again who are very influential, very capable. But this project, your project, isn't at the top of their list, and they won't get involved unless something goes wrong. Okay, so consult with these people when you need their time and their input. And then there's low interest and low power people. And I have one of my colleagues, God bless them, say recently, you should ignore these people. Have you ever felt ignored? Yeah, when you thought you had some interest? No, we don't ignore these people. Okay, ignoring people just stirs up contention, toxicity. You don't want to do that. So don't provoke these people. Yeah, they may read your executive summary. They may not. Okay. So here's a couple of. I'm going to give you a couple of busy slides in a minute. Healthy team behaviors. Your change project will have a team of people, and these people use their resources to benefit others. They include others in their higher network. If you've got a meeting with a senior person, your senior, someone senior to yourself, and there's an opportunity to include somebody who reports to you, include them. They will relish the opportunity if you choose the right people. Okay, speak well. Good team people speak well and honestly of others. There's a respectful demeanor. They're not self-promoting. It's not all about me. They're genuinely interested in seeing other people do well, and for that reason, they find ways to make other people successful. Now, two busy slides, a bit of alliteration. The first slide is behaviors that build, and these are things that you should encourage in your team that will strengthen your team and its cohesiveness. And then the second busy slide will be deeds that demolish, things that people do that damage. Yep. So I think we'll make available the PDF of these two slides, if nothing else. So I'm going to fly through this. Okay. So constructive behaviors, things like information is shared freely, people's suggestions are considered, there's a relaxed atmosphere, people aren't all guarded and defensive, conflicts are resolved quickly. You become aware of a conflict in your team, get in there. Yeah. I don't want to make a fuss while it's something small. Deal with it small before it gets big and difficult. Okay. Asking people questions to better understand them. There's a positive attitude, a good demeanor, keeping your word. Yeah. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. Okay. Supporting, which is demonstrated in protecting people and agreeing with them when they're right. Being cooperative, being responsive. Trust is earned and maintained, and we're going to talk a bit more about trust in a minute. Yeah? The ability to summarize what you've heard, to consolidate it, treat people with courtesy, dignity, and respect. Everybody thrives on those things and works better when they exist. Commitment is demonstrated, and good listening. Yeah. Have you ever been talking to someone and you just realize they are not listening to a word you're saying? Very destructive. Okay. Deeds that damage, again, we'll send you face-saving behaviors, people protecting their ego. Repetition. This is the person who thinks they can get their way by nagging and saying the same thing over and over and over again. Don't let that be a winning strategy. People who fight their corner. Repetition. That's my idea of humor. The put down. I've got 3 grown-up sons. When they were young, the put down was a full pastime among their friends and peers. Hopefully, adults don't do that. Okay. False compliance. This is the person who says yes and doesn't do it. Okay. Excessive compliance is the person who says yes to everything and is overwhelmed. Okay. Getting personal insults and attacks, interrupting people when they're speaking, people who dominate a meeting. Yeah. You need to, when you're in a meeting context, your job is to make sure that you hear from everybody who's got something to say, not just the biggest personality in the room. Repetition, humor again, and people who are defensive. So we will get you the PDF of those 2 slides, if nothing else. So guys, every successful project has a great leader, and that may well be you. Okay, being a great leader is more than telling people what to do. Yeah, it's who you are. As a leader, your attitude is contagious. People will tend to follow your example. So how you behave is what they'll do. And having followers is better than driving your people in your team. Yeah. And we'll talk about how you build a team of people who will follow you in a minute, because they won't follow you if they don't trust you. Okay. So there are 4 cores of trust. Okay. And this is how you can build trust with people. Because frankly, If your team don't trust you, they won't believe you, they won't follow you, they won't do what you've said, they won't do what you've asked, you're on a hiding to nothing. There are 4 elements of trust. Learn and understand these, because if they don't trust you, they won't follow you. Integrity, courtesy, consistently walking the talk, especially under pressure. Are you the same person on a good day that you are on a bad day? Yeah, that I've worked with people who go, I won't go and talk to him today because he's in a bad mood. Don't be that person. Okay. Intent, and this is your no hidden agendas and your motives are open and clear. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And this is why we're going to do it. Okay. Capability, frankly, are you fit for purpose? Can you do what's being asked of you, both in terms of your expertise and your style? And then results. Do you have a history of delivering? There are people in your world that you know will deliver a project well, and there are others where you would need to be persuaded. So building trust is key to building a great team as a great leader. Yeah, integrity, intent, capability, and the results. Because who you are and what you do matters. You are the message. What you do matters than what you say. People tend to model themselves on their leader. Okay, and often a manager is why people leave. Now, I've worked in HR, and we do exit interviews. And in an exit interview, everybody tells you they're leaving for more money. Probably not true. The reason most people leave their job is because they don't like their manager. Okay. So we did a survey on what people want in their leader. And these are things: patience, confidence, persuasion, technical skills. These are all fairly low numbers, all less than a third. Okay. Good attitude, positive people who are committed, organizational skills. A lot of these things are skill-based. This is what people look for in their leader. Okay. They look for ethics and integrity. We just touched on those in trust, and interpersonal openness and the ability to build relationships. Please note that those 2 things are about your personal integrity and character, yeah, and they score in the 60s, whereas until those point, everything else was in the 30s. So we'll send you that slide as well. There are many leadership styles, and if you thought the previous slide was difficult, this one will do it. There's a thing called the management continuum, which is at one end, you have the manager uses all the authority, makes all the decisions, and gives orders on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, not quite democratic, but the team feel empowered, they feel trusted. Yeah, the manager knows to include them in decision-making. And I regularly ask people, which is the right leadership style? And all the alphas choose the authority style, and all the reasonable people tend to move more to the right. Which is the right leadership style? Well, it depends the circumstances you're facing. Okay, and the great leader is one who's not trapped at either end of the scale. The great leader is someone who knows when to step up and use some overt authority, and when to delegate, when to trust, when to be more inclusive. And I don't know if you see that. Hopefully you can, but it's a sliding scale. And the best managers know what the current circumstance requires and what's currently needed. And I just want to touch on this briefly. Public speaking, if you're in charge of a leadership program, you are going to have to talk to a group of people. And this is a whole day course, but here come the gems briefly. Public speaking really matters. 10% of the population have a debilitating fear of public speaking. 10% love public speaking. Won't let you guess which I am. Poor public speakers earn 10% less. Is that right? Is that wrong? No. Is it statistically accurate? Yes. Okay. And poor public speakers have 15% less promotion prospects. Is that right? Is that wrong? It is, however, how things are done. Okay. And good public speakers are more influential. Work on your public speaking skills if you've got a group leadership role. And there are people, and I'm drawing to a close now, I think, who make emotional decisions. And they do so because, well, I've always done it this way. Yeah, they're tied to a habit. And there are those who are afraid they won't be able to deal with what's coming up. And there are others who are afraid of being sidelined. And there are people like, I'm good at this. I don't think I'll be good at that. What am I good at? And what am I going to lose as a result of this program? Give people a purpose, not just a task. And I'm going to stop with this slide. Your personal emotional resilience. Okay. Be self-aware. Talk to safe people that you trust and ask them, when I speak in public, yeah, where would you rate me? What would you suggest I do differently? Just to pick that one. Okay. But be self-aware, get feedback from good, capable people that you trust and with whom you feel safe and who have the courage to be honest with you. Persistence, your personal resilience. Don't be someone who's quick to give up. Yeah. One of the major keys to success is people not quitting. Emotional self-control. Please don't be the person who explodes all over people. And your brain makes the decision. People will respond emotionally to those decisions, but you need to understand that you're dealing with their emotions as well as their character and quality. Be someone who's comfortable with making decisions. Don't be afraid to make decisions. There are always things that could go wrong, but great leaders know when to make a decision, when to make a decision on their own, and when to include other people. And the whole two-way communication piece again. Great leaders build great relationships. And the ability to demonstrate empathy. And empathy is knowing how someone feels, but not feeling like it. Yeah. I'm afraid of this project. I understand why you feel afraid. Isn't the same as I'm afraid as well. Yeah. That disempowers you. What about the unhappy people? You don't have any of those, do you? You wish. Okay. Listen, your aim is not to make them happy. Yeah. Unhappy people want something usually that they're not going to get. Your aim with the unhappy people is their understanding. They know what's going on. They know why they're doing it. Yeah. You give them understanding. You get their acceptance. Do you understand what we're doing? And will you commit yourself to doing it? And get them to say yes or no. Yeah. If they say yes, excellent, go you. If they say no, you're going to have a conversation because you don't want them sabotaging your project. You want their acceptance, their participation, and no sabotaging. And sabotaging is a bit of a harsh word, but there are people who will want to see the project fail for all sorts of reasons. Some reasons that actually may be value and moral principled, but you need to have that conversation with them. And when you see sabotage, confront it when it happens. Criticism, guys, is inevitable. We all like being criticized, don't we? Listen, it's stressful. It's always going to be stressful. It's not going to be anything other than stressful. And what most people are afraid of when they're critiquing somebody's work, they're afraid of their reaction. Don't give in to your fear. Keep your professional skills on. Remember your listening skills, yeah, and deal with the issue. Because your motivation in this situation is their improvement, not your frustration. If you sit on something until you can't keep it in anymore, and you explode all over somebody, it's not going to get you a good result. Okay? And listen, criticism is never a throwaway dig in the heat at the moment. I had to talk to a junior manager once who walked past one of his team. I happened to be in the background. And he as he walked past his team member, he said, "Tim, glad you could arrive on time this morning," in front of the entire office. That was all the motivation Tim needed to do better. Please, it's never a throwaway dig, guys. Don't do that. Great leadership and accountability matter because only 16% of projects are completed on time and on budget. You will struggle to find a public sector project that's delivered on time and on budget. Yeah, that's not a value judgment against the public sector. It's just a feature of the world in which you live, with ever-changing values and ever-changing leadership. On average, major projects will have a cost overrun of 188%. I'm resisting naming any projects. You can identify those in your own mind. Yeah, and on average, major projects have an overrun time of around 220%. Yeah. Great leadership, touching on some of the skills that we've dealt with in the past half an hour, will help deal with some of those issues. And just finally, and Daniel, this is my last slide, thank you. There is an article that's recently been published by McKinsey. If you go Googling, you'll find it. The magazine article is called Honing Leadership Excellence in the Public Sector, drafted by McKinsey, who are a firm of consultants. The consultants are sometimes good and sometimes getting better. This is an excellent article. It's one of the best pieces I've read, written recently, on leadership excellence in the public sector.